Welcome back in. Today we're going to discuss some of our favorite defenses for Week 12, as well as some streaming options for you. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with our top 12 defenses to start, and we're going to kick things off at the top with the Denver Broncos, who have been a really pleasant surprise so far this season, averaging 9.4 fantasy points per game. They currently lead the league in sacks and have also turned the ball over 13 times, as well as produced 2 touchdowns on the defensive side of the ball. This week, the Broncos get another strong matchup against the Raiders. We're absolutely playing the Broncos with absolute confidence this week. Next up is the Lions. Even after losing Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions one of the best defenses for fantasy purposes. They are currently the DST 9 in fantasy points per game, and have done so on the back of 19 turnovers, also scoring another additional 2 touchdowns on that side of the ball as well. While the pass rush really hasn't been great, they still have produced the 15th most sacks. This week, we will see if Anthony Richardson continue a strong performance. I would bet against that this week, making the Lions my DST2 this week. Next up is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, they had an impressive performance last week against a red-hot Ravens offense. They held one of the best offenses in the league to just 16 total points. Steelers are averaging 9.7 fantasy points per game, which is second to only the Vikings. While they haven't registered a ton of sacks, they have created 19 turnovers and now face Jameis Winston on Thursday Night Football. The Browns have allowed the most sacks, the second highest pressure rate this season. With Winston's gunslinger mentality, it's not hard to see this one of the top 3 scoring defenses this week. Now, something we will want to monitor with that game is the weather. Right now, it's looking for heavy rain during the game with 18-mile-an-hour winds with 35-mile-an-hour wind gusts. If that's what we get, it obviously is a negative for both passing games. I still think they're still a safe bet on the defense, but I just think that it limits their upside a little bit because you're probably not going to be asking Jameis Winston to drop back 40 times with weather conditions such as that. So we'll see, something to monitor for sure. But I do think the Steelers are still a really strong play no matter what. Next up is the Vikings, and they have been one of the best fantasy defenses this season under Robert Flores' creative scheme. They have the third most sacks, the most turnovers, and scored 3 defensive touchdowns this year. The Vikings will take on a Bears offensive line that has been decimated by injuries. The Bears have allowed the 41 sacks this season. With Flores' creative scheme, I expect a rough day for Caleb Williams and the Bears offense this week. Lastly, I want to talk about the Chiefs really quick. Plenty of people pick up and play the Chiefs this week against the Panthers. I'm not sure it's as sexy as some might think. Chiefs have not done a great job converting sacks this season, and the Panthers offensive line has actually allowed the lowest pressure rate this season. The Chiefs feel more like one of the more safer options with the lower ceiling than the defenses above them, but I do think they still have a pretty safe floor in this one. You're not really expecting Bryce Young to come in and light this defense up. So I do think they're a safe pick, but I don't think they have a really high ceiling either. So now let's move over to some of our streaming options this week. First up is the Commanders. Early in the season, the Commanders were one of the worst defenses. However, since week 4, the Commanders have turned in 5 top 15 performances. They have registered 2 or more sacks in every game since week 3, creating a turnover in 7 of the last 8 games as well. This week, the Commanders take on a Cowboys offense that is dreadful. Dallas struggled to protect their quarterbacks this season as they've allowed the 8th most pressures and now top 5 in sacks allowed this year. They were horrible. They were terrible again on Monday Night Football. They also lost 2 of their starting offensive linemen in that game. Zach Martin, for sure, had to go to the locker room. So just not great for the Dallas offense right now. So the Commanders look like a really, really strong play this week. Next up is the Bucs versus the Giants. While the Bucs defense isn't among the best fantasy defenses this season, they still do a good job putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. The Bucs have produced the 7th most pressures and have turned that into the 9th most sacks. Regarding turnovers, the Bucs have created the 15th most turnovers this season as well. This week, the Bucs take on a Giants offense that has made a change at quarterback, and they have decided to replace Daniel Jones and go with Tommy DeVito. DeVito wasn't terrible last year at times and can pick up yardage with his legs, but I do not think this is a slam dunk for the Bucs, who have allowed the 4th most passing yards and the 5th most touchdowns to quarterbacks. But with Andrew Thomas out, the offensive line has struggled mightily, allowing the 6th highest pressure rate and 8th most sacks. The Bucs should be viewed as a top 15 defense this week. And then the Cardinals is kind of like my sneaky play of the week for defense. The Cardinals defense has been much better what I've thought entering the season. They're currently the DST 12 on the season and averaging 7.4 fantasy points per game. They have scored 8 or more fantasy points in 5 of 9 games this year. I think the Cardinals are a safer option this week against a Seahawks offense that has allowed the 7th most sacks, due in large part because of really poor offensive line play. So I do think the Cardinals are another defense that you could possibly look at this week. That being said, let us know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts? If you have any questions about who you should stream, who you should pick up, let us know in the comment section below. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.